I got to tell a story about this.
We'll get into all this. Are we starting right now?
Let's just go.
Dude, we have a jam-packed show today.
We do, and I don't think we need all this content. We don't need all of this, Reid.
We got a lot of content. When Mark from News Hub, love you to death, when he drops a 13-minute episode this week, I'll tell you, people, if you want XFL stuff, if you want random shenanigans, Paul's got stories today. This is a jam-packed. This is the place to go. I want people to know XFL ramblings and thoughts. We're here at the Markcast.
No edits. Let's go.
Yeah, we're going for it. Paul's got a busy day. I really do appreciate making the time on Thursday. We got Jay's going to join us in the show, and I do really appreciate that that we could schedule that and have him come on to talk about the Spring League. So thank you, Paul.
Yeah, we normally record on Wednesdays, but this week it's Thursdays. So this episode's going to be really fresh out of the oven because as soon as I'm done, we're done recording it. I'm going to produce it out, get it uploaded, so you'll be good to go before all my other stuff happens today. I've got mass hysteria going on. New bed coming in, old bed going out. It's just nuts, and I'm waving my hands around, and I don't know why.
That's okay. And I got my audio figured out going through the Zoom, so I think we're just firing on all cylinders today. I feel good about it.
Yeah. Am I now called Petty Paul over here on this podcast too for my Jim Thomas story? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I was like, because I do get confused because Paul Williams, our other friend that's Paul is Party Paul, and so I was like, I think it's Petty Paul, and then when I shared that, and then I said, yeah, so that's why they call him Petty Paul. So.
They love to call me.
We didn't get any feedback from Jim Thomas on that. I shared our big feud with Jim Thomas. I was really surprised that I didn't get more traction on Twitter.
Is it our feud or is it my feud? And it's not really a feud. You were a jerk to me once, Jim, and that was, and I blocked him after it happened. I think if I might be mistaken, but I think there was a little bit of interaction after the incident happened, and I just blocked him. So I'm not going to see anything if he responds, and I really don't care.
Well, I'll let you know.
We're going to be positive today.
We're going to be positive. So I want to start first off. Positive, but I might be positive. We might have a podcast feud, Paul. And I wanted to ask you about this. I took our team, the Jousters, in the Spring League. I didn't ask your opinion on that. That's one thing. I will ask your opinion on this. There's been no shots fired. Do we have a podcast feud with the Attitude Era podcast over who is ranking higher in the Apple podcast feeds on XFL searches?
Well, I think that you care more about this than I do, and that's fine. That's not a knock on you. It's your focal point is to drive up the reviews to get us to the highest ranking possible. I know that there is a show above us that is basically really ingratiated with the ownership of the XFL. We're probably never going to top those guys. Yep. That's fine, but. If you do an XFL episode once or twice in your wrestling podcast, should you rank above a XFL podcast that's XFL heavy? I don't think that's the case. So It's not really a feud. It's just common sense, basically.
Well, that's the thing is it's just so some context. So if you search XFL on Apple Podcasts, you get XFL show, and then you get Mark's podcast, a week in review, and then you get this Attitude Era podcast. And I'm sure they're a wonderful wrestling podcast. We love the Attitude Era. Paul knows all about the Attitude Era, but they literally did a bonus episode 4.5 years ago when Vince was talking about the XFL and all this stuff. And because of that, I think when you search XFL, because they have so much other stuff for wrestling, they rank higher. So the way that we're going to combat this is if you like the show, if you're passionate about the XFL, if you want XFL podcasts to rank higher where they need to be, you can leave us a review at xflshow.com/review. Remember, you get a free XFL mask. We've shipped them out this week, and we have some new reviews. I was going to read them on the podcast here too, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So we have Adams advising, and they work with a lot of college athletes and high school athletes, and they've been really, really supportive on the podcast. They followed us and they retweeted, and we got a lot of new followers coming on because of that. He says the XFL is back. Just found out about this podcast, but it's great. Love being able to stay in touch with the XFL, and this is by far the best XFL podcast for that. Not the Attitude Era podcast, the XFL podcast. We have a review from Badunks. He says, if you don't like this podcast, you're wrong. So there you go. If you don't like this podcast, you're wrong. And then we have one from I Love the XFL. I think this is our fan, Jack Stevens. He says, this is a great podcast to listen to. And I'm going to tell you, Paul, we have Van the Man, our number one fan. But Van is in very serious contention of losing his number one fanship to Jack Stevens. Jack Stevens ordered some stickers this week. They're on the way. He reviewed the podcast. He even recommended, he asked me on Facebook if we had a Book Cameo account, if we had our own Book Cameo account. You know, I love the Book Cameos. And he thought maybe we should start one. What do you think?
Can we do that when we're doing it remotely? Is that a possibility?
I think we just do this. I think we just get on Zoom and
record one, because it just, like, every time I see them, it seems like they're framed up in a certain way where the Cameo logo, you can't really crop it out if you wanted to put it on Instagram. So, and little trade secret, when I did my crowdfunding campaign for Last Days of Dixie, my documentary film, I totally used Cameo, and that's how I got the guy from Friday, Tiny Lister, on. So they kind of frame it in a way where the Cameo logo is like, it's. I mean, we can look into it. We could definitely look into it. I mean, I don't know what would we charge? $10? We're not that popular yet.
I might. Well, I mean, if Cardell Jones is pulling in 45, Sharman Jones, I think we could. I think we could pull in. But I think you're assuming maybe people would just want cameos from you. You're assuming that they would want both of us. Maybe maybe they would just say, "Hey, I want Paul," or "Hey, I want Reid." I mean, maybe they don't want. Maybe Jack just wants a Paul cameo. Maybe he just wants a Reid cameo. Yeah. Anyway, Jack, thank you for listening. Thank you guys, everybody, for leaving the reviews. I really do appreciate it. Remember, xflshow.com/review. You get a free mask. James Larson got his this week. Our boy Moose got his. We shared photos. They're posting them all over the place. So we really, really appreciate the reviews. If you like the XFL stuff, if you're passionate about the league like we are, leaving us a review. xflshow.com/review. And that is my plug. Awesome. Thank you. All right. The big news that I think we should talk about first and foremost was Jordan Tiamou being cut from the Chiefs. Yes. Crazy. So basically, and I don't know, this is a situation where players are cut all the time, but kind of kept in the loop, so to speak, where, for example, it's hard to know which Griffin brother is which. The Griffin brother that has no hand, he was actually cut from the Seahawks, then brought back. So a lot of these players get cut and then get brought back. But of course, Jordan Tiamou also did test positive for COVID, and maybe that had something to do with why he was released. Sorry, yeah, I flipped through about 18 different tabs trying to find the right one. And talking about the Griffin brothers, we actually did. I had a family that they won. That kid suffers from some of the same disability, not disabilities, the same health issues. And he actually got to meet him, and we filmed the whole thing. We went to Seahawk camp, and Russell Wilson walked by and was like, "Hey, get the camera off me." And we were trying to interview Shaquem Griffin and his brother. So yeah, I was like, "Come on, Russ." Is he big timing you? He kind of was. I was like, because I had lights and camera. I got everything pointed in this corner, and then Russell Wilson walks by like on the other side of the room and is like, "Hey, man." And I'm like, "Dude, we're not." Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was kind of weird. Russell, come on, man. Yeah, I've got an autographed helmet from you. Well, simmer down. Russ, maybe he was hungry. Russ wasn't cooking yet. Maybe we were getting ready to let Russ cook. But no, yeah, I think Tiamou was sick. He missed the time. It's crazy. I mean, I guess it's good for the XFL for him coming back. But yeah, I mean, he could be plugged into anywhere. Like we're going to have Jay talking about the Cowboys on. I don't know, when you have people like this that have skill, why we are leaving these like Andy Daltons of the world that not that he doesn't have skill, but why are we not trying something else, right? One of my best friends is a Cowboys fan, and one of my coworkers that's my friend is a Cowboys fan. And we were actually discussing Andy Dalton last night, and she's like, "He's so trash, so terrible." And I mean, he did some things in Cincinnati well, but he's the kind of player that had that burst for about 2 or 3 years. And I'm going to say it because Doug Dillon, our friend Doug Dillon, and I have been going back and forth on Facebook about the argument between Madison, Baumgartner, and Clayton Kershaw. And I stick to my guns that Clayton is the better pitcher all around. I mean, Madison
Madison's got what, 2 rings? Clayton has 1, but Matt and Kershaw has way better numbers. Madison had a burst. And I think Andy Dalton's the same way, where it's a burst, where it was like 4 or 5 years great, and then his peak happened, and he was in the gutter from there. So Andy Dalton should never be a starting quarterback, and it's unfortunate what happened to Dak Prescott. But maybe that's a landing spot for Jordan Tiamou. Of course, I'm sticking to my Colin Kaepernick thing. I'm going to stick to that till I die, probably.
Well, I just think there's if it's not working, and some of these teams, and this year it's been, like I said, I'm just following it a lot more than I have in the past, and I'm like, yeah, man, if things aren't working, and if you have someone that's ready to go and is mobile and is young and is fast and is so young, and they even talked about that back when he was on the Battlehawks, that for being so young, he just commanded that team. And kind of like a Pat Mahomes, right? You got this younger guy, and I don't know really what the dynamics are like that. If I was like a big, 300-pound linebacker that was, mid-30s and listening to, I don't know, right? But these guys command respect, and I think Tiamou's great, and I think that he should have a place, and I think it's crazy that he got cut. I saw Mike Mitchell posted that, and I was like, no, like at the end of Star Wars with Darth Vader at the bad one before the New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, when he was like, no, when he became Darth Vader. That was
when he found out Padme had died. Yeah. I think the Chiefs only have 2 quarterbacks on their roster now. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, a lot of faith. I mean, and Patrick Mahomes is great, but I just think, it's crazy that you don't find a place for some of these guys, and that he's just sitting on the sidelines now, I guess, somewhere.
And I don't think I don't wish this on Patrick Mahomes at all. I mean, but if he did happen to get injured, their backup, I think, it's Henny. Henny's not a quarterback that team is loaded. Le'Veon Bell is their backup running back. That team is loaded, but I don't think Chad Henne is the guy to lead that team anywhere. So the offense would fit Tiamou coming back if that were a possibility. God forbid, because we don't want anything to happen to Patrick Mahomes. I think he's a stellar kid, amazing player. Sounds like Kermit the Frog, but anyway, amazing. Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here. Anyway, moving on.
He's in the State Farm commercials, him and Aaron Rodgers. And there's like, hey, thanks for giving me the Patrick Mahomes discount. And they're like, there is no Patrick Mahomes discount. We're just, they're funny. I don't know. It's funny seeing these NFL guys trying to like act in these commercials.
Keeping it moving, speaking of COVID, apparently the Panthers have released former Renegades defensive back Josh Hawkins, after he posted a video being maskless at a crowded restaurant.
This is nuts. This is crazy. If you're an XFL guy, and by the grace of anything holy, you get brought on to be on an NFL squad, and then he's out. How all these teams have been having issues. Cam Newton, right, was sick. Cam Newton's not on the Panthers. I always default back. But it's just crazy. You have all these guys, you have all this illness, and then now you have him running around in a club with no mask on, and they cut him.
Well, is there a double standard here? Because in New York, the Giants, who are terrible, Daniel Jones, quarterback, who I don't think is a franchise quarterback at all, and Saquon Barkley were out and about. Others on the team were out and about without masks in New York. And I know New York is their caseload has come dramatically down. They were the hot spot for a long time. I know their case count has come down, but Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, big time stars going out, hanging out, not wearing masks out and about. So maybe there's I don't know, because you're talking about 2 different levels, 2 different tiers of player, I guess, starters as opposed to people that were signed to kind of fill roster spots. So it's interesting why these NFL players are just being reckless.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you got that opportunity and that's how you decided to blow it, I mean, there are plenty of guys behind you that are willing to take that spot if you are not going to follow the rules. I mean, I don't think it's that hard. I think that, they've been ratcheting down with the teams as the season's gone on with, the ongoing issues that have still been happening. But yeah, that's crazy.
You brought up Cam Newton. I don't know how much longer that experiment's going to work. So maybe there's a spot for Jordan Tiamou there.
Yeah,
I don't know how much long that Cam Newton Patriots experiment's going to work out. Cam's already worried about being benched. It might be a place where Tiamou lands.
Well, they finally sat him at the end of last week when they were, whatever that brutal game was, when they were losing. I mean, I don't know. Have you been following that closely?
I did follow it somewhat because I mean the World Series has been the focal point here in LA because the Dodgers did win the World Series, but I did follow it. I listened to the color commentary. I should say not color play-by-play. The color commentary guy who probably like 3 plays and was like, okay, this experiment's over. Bench him. There was like a viral video where the color commentator was like completely trashing Cam Newton. He's like, you got a guy wide open. This is ridiculous. Bench him. We'll have to find that audio because it was one of the funniest things I heard this week about the situation. And Cam looks lost out there. He looks completely lost out there. And he's basically, there's been an argument that now that Brady and Belichick are separate, Brady's in Tampa Bay, Belichick's still in New England. Who helped who? Who made who? And there's been this argument for last almost year after they decided Tom was going to move on, who helped who? Was it Belichick or was it Brady? And Brady's winning that argument right now. Brady's winning that argument hands down because if it's a system situation where Belichick can find a system quarterback, they should have the same results they had with Tom Brady. And I do realize that in Tom Brady's initial run, like within the first 8 years, the defense is what got the Patriots where they were. I completely accept and acknowledge that. That all being said, Tom Brady is still having more success in Tampa Bay than he had than he had maybe last year in New England. And I don't think it's a situation where Tom Brady's a system quarterback. You're talking about this era's GOAT is Tom Brady.
Oh, by far.
We had those conversations where is he better than Montana? Is he not better than Montana? This era, Tom Brady is the greatest. And that's not a system thing. That's Tom Brady. Tom Brady has intangibles you can't measure in terms of a system or data on a computer like the baseball freaks do.
Yeah, I don't know what New England does otherwise. I don't know what their backup plan is right now.
Neither do I. Moving on. What else did you want to talk about?
I want to talk about, we were talking about COVID. We were talking about the Dodgers. I want to talk about because I watched the Spring League on Tuesday. You watched the World Series. I want to hear about this like craziness with the COVID thing and the pitcher and everything. I want to get your take on this because I know we texted a little bit.
Okay, so I have played baseball at every level. And I mean every level. Like it's got my framed jersey behind me.
What was it? 1/4 of an inning or something? What was it?
It was like an inning and 2/3 in 2 different games. Yeah. So my point is like I detest what over nerding is doing to the sport of baseball. I can't stand it. It just athletics can't be processed through a computer. Athletics can't be boiled down to numbers all of the time. Some of the time, you have to go with your gut. And Dave Roberts, probably the last, I want to say before this, the last 4 years, has been relying too many times on data. The spreadsheet says X, I have to do Y. Let's pull someone despite the fact that maybe they're dealing. For example, Mike Ford from the New York Yankees came in to pinch hit for Kyle. I have a hard time pronouncing his name. Higashioka. Boom, I nailed it.
Magliochetti.
Yeah, you got nailed it too. Wow, we're on a roll, Reid. So basically, Mike Ford, who hadn't had a hit since came in to pinch hit for Higashioka. See, I screwed it up there. In the ALDS against Tampa. The problem is that if that's a statistical data-driven decision, that is a dumb decision. And some of these decisions that are data-driven are dumb. For example, Blake Snell is the pitcher we're talking about. He was coming up through the order the third time. Now, break this down in terms of I'll make an argument for data here. When Blake Snell comes in and he's dealing, he's 70 some odd pitches in. He is dealing. No one has an answer for him. No one has it. He's making the Dodgers lineup look like little leaguers, and the Dodgers lineup is powerful. He's making them look silly. So Kevin Cash comes out before Mookie Betts comes on because Mookie's third time through the lineup. That's a data decision made by their nerds. They say no pitcher should face a lineup 3 times, through, except apparently for Tyler Glasnow, who had to sit through 112 pitches during the World Series. It's insane. So when you look at the numbers, Mookie, Blake Snell's a left-hander. Mookie's bats on the right side of the plate. Mookie's OPS is high the first time he faces a left-hander, a little bit lower the second time, and even lower the third time. So basically what you're talking about is Mookie's going to have less success seeing a pitcher on the third time, especially if they're a left-hander. Now, in terms of Blake Snell's, I can't remember the stat. I can't remember exactly what stat it was, but Blake Snell actually gets better the third time he faces a lineup. So in terms of data, you should have left Blake Snell in. That's data, especially against Mookie Betts,
Did this cost them the World Series?
Yeah, it did.
Really?
Hands down. So Dave Roberts used to rely on this. And this time around, in a shortened season, because in a 162-game season, this system works. In a long, drawn-out sample size, because you have crappy teams you play against, this works in a long, drawn-out 162-game season. In a 60-game season with these playoffs, data-driven analysis does not work. And I will argue this tooth and nail till I die, how bad this decision was. Because Dave Roberts threw it out. David's like, I'm going to go with my gut here on this one. And look what happened. The Dodgers have broke their 32-year drought in terms of winning the World Series.
And then my other question was, because this was my original question, then you went into the data stuff, which is great, about the COVID, about the guy that had the COVID that came back out.
There's 2 schools of thought here. There's one, a lot of people are making arguments like these are adults making adult decisions. Okay, fine. Whatever. Adults are free to make their own decisions. That's a personal freedom thing. I understand that argument altogether. The problem occurs when he takes off his mask and sits next to Dave Roberts, who is a cancer survivor. So therefore, he is in a high-risk area for catching COVID. The problem also exists when Justin Turner is maskless in front of a minority stake owner of the Dodgers that has HIV, who just happens to be named Irvin Magic Johnson. He's high risk. Dave Roberts is high risk. This was reckless. This was ridiculous. I understand you want to be out there. You want to celebrate your teams, but you had the Dodgers not won Game 6. This news would have come out. And what do? Do we quarantine everybody? Because all the tests except for a player's wife came back negative. And that's fine right now, but it's going to take a few days before maybe some viral load builds up in a test to show that maybe other people were infected.
Did they just barely get this World Series done? Was it were they staring at the barrel of the gun?
There's a conspiracy theory running around that Rob Manfred called and said, hey, Kevin Cash, the Tampa Bay manager. Hey, Kevin, just so you heads up, Justin Turner's got COVID. Can you make sure you guys lose? There's a conspiracy theory running around about that. It's you're leaning back whoa, you're like a GIF right now. You're leaning back. There's no conspiracy here. The Dodgers were the better team, hands down. And they decided to go, let's take the data, but let's take intuition and let's mix the two and let's get a formula that wins a World Series. And now Clayton Kershaw has the monkey off his back. I just think this was reckless. And I don't think any argument is wrong in this terms. I see the point where people are these are consenting adults, and Clayton Kershaw, if he wanted to hug Justin Turner, he had every right to. That's fine. But you have to think about the people that are on that field that are immunocompromised, like Dave Roberts, like Magic Johnson. I think it was reckless.
When you talk about the conspiracies, that's like my grandpa, R.I.P., but he always would say, that's why the NBA always goes 7 games. You get more ad revenue. You get 7 games, and in the finals, you get more ad revenue. That he always thought there was a conspiracy.
So I actually said this on Will House that I said Dodgers in 6, and that came to fruition. But before Game 6, before it even started off first pitch, this guy at work was like, "Hey, what do you think is going to happen tonight?" I'm like, "Oh, Tampa's going to win." The MLB is sorting allegedly going to be $8.3 billion in the hole this year. $8.3 billion. And I'm sorry, we're not talking about XFL.
We're going to get back to it. We'll get back
to the XFL right after the commercial break. The problem is that MLB is going to be in the hole $8.3 billion because of the pandemic. So of course they want to milk a little bit more money out of ad revenue and ticket sales and merchandise and beer and all that other crap. So I was like, oh, this is going to go Game 7. And I mean, I didn't believe it initially, but once I saw that news that MLB was in trouble, I was like, this is going to go Game 7. They need a little bit more money to kind of make up what they're going to lose for the entire season being shortened.
Did you see the other thing I posted about the NBA? How the NBA ended up coming out okay?
Yeah, came out 10 million higher than they were slated to.
Yeah,
kudos. I mean, I think that's a situation where people were just so desperate and thirsty for sports that the advertising revenue was going up because people wanted to watch something. They wanted to watch some sports. They wanted to feel some sort of normal. And I love what the NBA did, where and WWE copied the NBA's model, where they did the WWE has the Thunderdome now, where they put all the little Zoom, FaceTime, whatever crap, the fans virtually in attendance. The NBA started doing that, and it was a great idea.
Yeah,
it was a genius idea. And I think that all that stuff helped make it fan-friendly as it could be given the current situation. So with that being said, I think we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk to
Jay. We're going to talk to our buddy Jai Nokes. And we'll get back on some more XFL stuff. I got some more stuff on the Google Doc.
Great.
See ya. There we go. Cool, man.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all for having me. Super excited about being on the Markcast.
Well, I really appreciate it. I saw when you posted that you were going to be covering the TSL and stuff, and obviously I follow all your stuff for everything anyways, and, the Cowboys and everything else. But I said we got to get, we're football guys, but I think sometimes we need to know when we need to lean on people that maybe know a little bit more about some specifics that we do. So I'm glad that you could come on.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all so much for having me. Super excited to be here, man.
Did you say you cover the Cowboys?
I don't cover the Cowboys. I would say I'm a fan, but I'm more critical than being a fan right now. I think I've been more critical over the past 10 years, to be honest with you, than anything. But I'm a critic of the Cowboys, not a fan.
It's
okay. I threw this out there that maybe they should consider signing Colin Kaepernick.
I don't know. Well, number one, we got to remember who's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. That's Jerry Jones. And, he makes a lot of political stances. He has drawn the line. I don't think that will happen. But I do think someone who could fit the mold, who's similar to Colin Kaepernick athleticism-wise, is Jordan Tiamou, former XFL St. Louis Battlehawks quarterback who was recently with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that would be a perfect fit for him.
Just got cut. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the show today. What was your reactions on that?
I think, number one, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. You got Pat Mahomes there, and I'm sure they have an experienced quarterback backing him up. I think it's still Matt Moore. So, with Tiamou being cut, really he was there to mimic some of the upcoming opponents that the Chiefs will be facing, such as Lamar Jackson. I forgot who else he was mimicking as well during his time with Kansas City. But I think him missing that week with COVID-19 really affected the overall what he was going to be with Kansas City. Unfortunately, he just didn't get enough time. But we'll see a lot more of these XFL players kind of shift around the league until they actually find a home, I believe. With that being said, the XFL is coming back in 2022. I'm sure all of the players who were in the XFL before should come back to this league. So hopefully Jordan Tiamou is a battle hawk again.
Yeah,
Chad Henne's the backup now for Kansas City.
That's who it is. I knew it was somebody who was Chad Henne. Old Chad Henne used to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars and
14 other NFL teams, if I remember correctly.
He's like Ryan Fitzpatrick, just the poor version.
While we're on the XFL thing, what's your reaction to them coming back? I mean, I know this is kind of dated news now, but what do you think about them? Hopefully we'll get some news here coming up before too long, but coming back in 2022.
My reaction to it, I think it was well thought out. I mean, the sources who I spoke with all said that they wanted this league to have a sense of longevity and credibility to it. They knew that the XFL, the 2.0 version, built a solid reputation and built solid fan bases in each of the 8 markets. So, I mean, and also we got to consider that, we're still in the middle of a public health crisis, which can change the game for everybody. So I thought it was a great move on their behalf. I thought, Jeffrey Pollock, Danny Garcia, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Redbird Capital Partners made the right decision to pause until 2022, because you also have to develop a player pool. You have to decide whether or not you want these coaches to come back. You have to decide whether or not you want team presidents to come back, if you can lock up some venues, all of that stuff. And logistically, it's kind of hard to crunch it in a 6-month time frame, especially when Vince McMahon took the XFL 2.0, announced it in 2018 and started play in 2020. So I think they're following the same blueprint. And they're just trying to stick to their guns, and also trying with Danny Garcia and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they're trying to create innovative ways to promote the league for the next year and a half. So I think it was the right decision, in my opinion.
Speaking of XFL coaches that were also now involved in the Spring League, I want to get your thoughts on, Tuesday. I followed, because the first 2 games were just on, they didn't put them on TV, they were streaming, and then they had the big Tuesday night was going against Paul was watching the World Series. So I know that was probably a bigger deal to some sports fans, but I was watching the Spring League. What did you think about everything going on with that?
Yeah, so Tuesday was actually a wife time night. So I had to spend a little bit of time with the wife, but I did get a chance to watch 1 quarter of the Spring League, and that was the Generals versus the Conquerors. I think that this is a great league and what people are mistaking the Spring League for. They're expecting the nuance of the XFL. They think that the Spring League is supposed to be what the XFL was, and that's not at all what it is. It's really a testing ground. It's really a proving ground. Players pay money to play on these teams. But I think it's very interesting, because what we're going to see a lot of these players who are going to get a shot with the XFL in the next rendition of it. So XFL 3.0, they're going to be able to select a really good player pool from the Spring League in this season. And keep in mind, they're not only just doing this season in San Antonio, they're going to do their traditional Spring League, and then they possibly could do the same thing next year to get some more players out there, or get some more film out there for these players, so that way they could sign with the XFL team, or possibly a CFL team if they ever come back, or who knows, a NFL team. But I thought the play was exceptional. I was really impressed by Brian Allen. The kid he just seemed so poised. I actually reached out to him after the game, and he responded. I just told him, hey man, you look confident, you look poised, you look like you're used to being back there. And that is what the XFL is really looking for in quarterbacks. I mean, we saw Jordan Tiamou, we saw PJ Walker, we saw Josh Johnson, we saw sometimes we saw my guy Taylor Cornelius perform at a pretty high level. So I think, this is a perfect league for the XFL to develop that player pool, and also get really good, solid quarterbacks that could play the position pretty well. So I'm pretty excited about the league. I'll be out there next Tuesday covering the FS1 game in the nighttime, and also the one that will not be streamed at 4:00. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked on the podcast. My wife, we're kind of becoming a football household now with the podcast, and XFL and NFL. And yeah, I mean, we watched the game. She thought it was great. I mean, because I'm asking her, well, what do you think about this? I mean, there was a little, some drop passes, some things. I mean, you got to remember that a lot of these teams had only practiced, I think, like 6 times before the games, but. I mean, she thought it was compelling. We watched the whole thing. It was like 33-19, or what, I can't even remember what the final score was, but it was, I mean, it was exceptional. She had a great time. I mean, did you think that they delivered on that, on the promise that people tuned in to see?
I think that they delivered on it, because, I mean, like I said, we got to keep everything in perspective. I think we got to take, everything into consideration when you look at the Spring League. Like you said, they didn't get a lot of preparation. I mean, let's compare it to the NFL, for instance. I mean, you see a lot of these teams in week one for the NFL, they didn't have the traditional training camp, mini camp, OTAs, or what have you, in order to prepare for the upcoming season. And the byproduct of that was players not really being fundamentally sound. And for some teams, like my Dallas Cowboys, and I'm going to throw this out there, like my Dallas Cowboys, they're not fundamentally sound, and it's week 8. So, I think that, those struggles in the spring league fundamentally was expected. I think a lot of people were happy to knock the rust off. Some players look good, some just didn't. And that all comes with preparation and all comes with having time to prepare and to sharpen those fundamentals, if you will. So that way, they could put a better product out on the field.
And stay healthy, because we saw a lot of injuries too in the first few weeks of the NFL regular season. For critics that say the preseason is too long and it's too ridiculous, that was another byproduct we saw.
I agree. I think the preseason, what we saw with the NFL is that a preseason isn't necessarily effective, but if we get at least 2 weeks in there of practice and preparation, installing, different offensive schemes for coaches, it can benefit them going into the regular season. But I think 4 preseason games is outrageous. I just think it's too much. And that's where you see a lot of injuries creep up before the season even starts. But yeah, I just think it's all about fundamentals at this point for any level of football. The spring league, when the XFL comes back, they're going to go through their steps of preparation and going through fundamentals as well, implementing schemes. That's the biggest part about football, is that your fundamentals have to be sharpened and the preparation has to be there.
What was interesting to me was, and I really didn't know what to expect. I tuned in. It seemed like the announcers, everybody was really knowledgeable about everything. The players had done their research, because, I'm figuring, okay, this is Tuesday night opposite the World Series. I mean, these guys, right? I mean, let's be honest here, trying to get excited to be like a Fox announcer covering these games. But I thought they did a great job. They knew the whole history of the league, talked about, stuff from last year. I knew which players had come back and had excelled before. I mean, I was just really impressed. It really seemed like everybody was doing what they could, because I kind of tuned in thinking, well, this could kind of be a train wreck. Who really knows what it's going to look like and sound like? What did you think about that?
I thought the production was great. And anytime you got Joe Klatt on the call, you're going to have a really good broadcast. I think that, with their research and their preparation, that's just what they do. And like you said, the spring league has been around for 4 or 5 years at this point. At one point, I'm in Austin, Texas. They actually did a season here in Austin. I think that's when Johnny Manziel came back. I think it was 2016 when they did the season here in Austin. So the spring league has been around. Also, the XFL tested out most of their rules at the spring league. So they have garnered a name for themselves, but they haven't garnered a name for themselves in regards to being like a big football brand. They've always prided themselves on being a developmental league, giving players a shot to get some film out there for scouts and coaches and that type of thing. But I thought the production of it was phenomenal. It felt like a Sunday on a Tuesday with Joe Klatt in there, or a big noon kickoff game with Joe Klatt in there. So I thought the preparation was great. The research was great. I also started researching players. That's why I was like, Brian Scott, the kid is really good. Also, I have a few players down there. Dwayne Wallace, who I speak with frequently. Rashawn Simonize, who was a wide receiver in the Canadian Football League, also had a stint with the Cincinnati Bengals as well. So, there are players out there who have developed or garnered a name for themselves, and it's easy for Joe Klatt and that Fox team to recognize them and research those players.
And by God, I keep forgetting the name. Willie Yarberry, number 90. He was had an interception. He had a forced fumble. He had a sack. And they were saying, man, this guy could go tomorrow to the NFL. Because they're talking about this. It's 4 weeks. It's kind of scrimmage games, but these guys are playing for tape, right? You're playing. You only have, if you're a QB and you maybe got 2 quarters to get whatever in that game, when they're split duties. And they said, man, that kid, he could walk in tomorrow if someone needed to fill in the spot with an injury, or, if someone got sick with COVID, everything's just so up in the air. And a lot of these guys, they were already saying like, man, if you wanted to excel in day one, he did. And a lot of them did. And it was just kind of exciting to see and hear that. So
can the Seahawks call that guy, please? to shore up the defense. Please.
Hey, look, the Seahawks just got Carlos Dunlap, so hopefully that helps.
No, Paul, that's a great point. After Sunday, and we couldn't get anything on Arizona at all. We could definitely use some sacks and forced fumbles off the QB. So that would be. Jay, anything else before we let you go? Anything else? Any thoughts about the Spring League, about the XFL? I'll be curious to follow you next week going to the Alamo Dome. Thoughts on that? Getting excited?
Yeah, man, getting really excited. I mean, this whole the past 12 months has been such a whirlwind. Got on Twitter, started covering the XFL with the draft and everything. And, you know, by this time this year, I got over 1,104 followers, which, you know, I don't pride myself on. I don't try to validate myself because of that. But it's been a fun ride, you know, and I'm just sharpening my skills, trying to be the best journalist I can be, the best reporter I can be. I don't really see myself as an insider. I see myself as somebody who's trusted with information. And I built those relationships, and it's a culmination over what I had built over the past 12 months. So I'm super excited about covering the Spring League. If I get any information in regards to the XFL, my sources have went completely silent, by the way, because they're all preparing for what's to come for the next step of preparation for 2021 going into 2022. But super excited, man. I also do a radio show, podcast, if you will, on Facebook every Wednesday at 6:30 called Notes by Nokes. You guys shared it last night. I appreciate your support, by the way. I do that with my homie, Joe Scanlon, up in Ardmore, Oklahoma. So we have a great time. Feel free to stop by on Facebook Live, Wednesdays, 6:30 live.
Yeah, tell Joe to quit making fun of you and the Cowboys. Tell him that he needs to lay off. I see these posts about people wearing masks and stuff, and your team lost to a football team with no name. You guys, I mean, Paul's mean enough to me. We don't need everyone being mean to each other, to their co-hosts and stuff.
I'm not the one with the Google Doc every week.
Well, it's funny. It's really funny because Joe's actually a Cowboys fan. I'm just, like I said, I'm a critic. And I try to just tell him what I see, and he's a big time Romo fan. I'm a Dak fan. So we have those type of spats on the show as well. So, you know, we have fun with it, man. And, we love each other, man. We've been knowing each other since March. We developed a really good relationship over the past, 8 to 9 months. And he's a really good guy. But, I'm going to tell him to stop, piling on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Gucci Danucci is going to do something on Sunday, and he's going back and forth. He's like, Gucci Danucci is going to be trash. So we'll see, man. We'll see. It's going to be a fun game on Sunday.
Paul, you're being very emotive over there.
Best of luck.
Yeah, that Sunday night game is going to be rough. I was looking at that this morning, and I thought, wow, that's going to be
Wentz is out. I mean, right? Wentz is out, right? Or am I? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm mixing up quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's going to be
Dalton. I think Dalton is out, but, you know, I think this is a good opportunity for the Cowboys to kind of get back to what they were doing with Dak back in 2016. Danucci, super athletic. He poises the threat of the read option as well. Ezekiel Elliott has talked about that too. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see. I just think this is a evaluation period for the Dallas Cowboys, but they're just trying to see what players are buying into this culture that Mike McCarthy has and who's not, and they're getting rid of those players who aren't.
Well, whoever gets six wins in this division is probably going to win it. So best of luck.
Appreciate it, Paul.
Jay, thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch. And I'll be following you next week when you're down in San Antonio.
For sure, fellas. Let me know if y'all want me back on the show, man. Would love to stop by again, fellas. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, man.
All right, see ya.
Peace.
There we go. We got our in sync again. We got our blacked out screen. Jay was great. I appreciate Jay coming on the podcast. He's going to be in San Antonio next week, talking Spring League. I wanted to do just a tiny bit more about the Spring League. Because I wanted to plug James Larson's article. He's going to be on the podcast next week talking about the Spring League. Paul, our Jousters, I hate to tell you this, got rocked. It was like 28-0. We got rocked. And they said that just to finish up the spring league stuff, the primetime game was the Generals and the Conquerors. They both ended up having the most complete teams that they had like drafted and everything. That everybody showed up. So Jousters was supposed to have Quentin Flowers. He didn't show up. You had a lot of people either no show or like their agents submitted them and then they didn't realize they were in the thing. And I don't really know how all that. I don't know. But so the Alphas beat the Alphas lost to the Blues. The Blues smoked them. The Blues have killer jerseys. They've got this like white and blue thing, but the Jousters got rocked. But I do want to say, and I'm going to petition this to be the title of the episode because I already have my photo that I would like to Photoshop if this is okay. Reid needs a Jousters jersey like stat. Because this thing, it's like purple. It's got like white and purple checkered shoulders. Dorothy loves it, and they need to sell. And I want to post this. And if the spring league is a pay-to-play league, you're charging these people to play. The jerseys look sick. And the fact that they're not selling them, I tweeted the spring league. I said, if you don't sell these jerseys, you are high. And I got a lot of support on that. So I'm just saying that the Jousters, I would like to put that as the thumbnail for this video podcast, if I have your permission.
That's totally fine by me. Speaking of the spring league, what is this about a 73-yard field goal you show? What is this?
Which tab?
The Conquerors 73-yard field goal, Matt Mangle. Is this real?
You're going to need to give me more. I'm looking.
More context because you're the king of context.
That was an article from our boy Josh Davis from last week, and he did an interview with the guy, the Conquerors kicker, getting ready to go on the season, and that was kind of talking about how not all the games are going to be televised and complaining about that, which I totally agree. That Josh laments that, and we've said before that they need to point a camera. They're shooting all the games anyway for the tape. But the fact that the first game was a blowout and then the Jousters were a blowout, and then the primetime game ended up having a competitive score, it was like 33-19, proves that they probably had the right idea, not broadcasting those first two games, the 28-0 loss. I think there were 7 turnovers in the Jousters in the Jousters game. So yeah.
We should, when we had Jay on the show, we should have talked about this too. That Hunter Niswander, former DC defender, punter, kicker, has signed a deal with the Cowboys.
Yeah. So Jay will be happy about that. More XFL guys getting reps and getting on. So that should be good.
What else did you have, man?
So we have a Oliver Luck update about the Oliver Luck Vince McMahon lawsuit. So Josh was reporting that I'm gonna say all this, and then I'm gonna need you to legalese figure this out for me because you're the expert when it comes to the legal stuff. So there's 2 things. Josh Davis on Twitter says preliminary liquidation analysis done by McMahon shows that the general unsecured creditors could expect to get 10% of their claim in the liquidations agreement. This isn't binding and can change once the court has time to assess. Does that mean anything to you? First off,
basically means that the initial payout's going to be 10%. That's the way I'm reading it, is that the initial payout's going to be 10%, and then each individual creditor will have their own ability to argue their own separate. I've been through a bankruptcy, so I know that each individual creditor will be able to argue their own case as to why they should be paid out as opposed to someone else, or why they should have the ability to feel like they will be paid some of what they're owed. That's basically what that means, is that everything, like a bankruptcy case, is basically kind of like a class action lawsuit in reverse, where the person who is the defendant files the suit to clear up their bankruptcy, and then every creditor becomes a plaintiff in that suit. So it's kind of reverse in terms of, like, if I file bankruptcy, then Capital One and my car loan company, and then American Express, they become the plaintiffs, and they ask, well, what are we going to get out of this if we go ahead and say, yeah, Judge, it's fine. We agree on this thing. So basically it becomes like all these different separate little cases within a one bigger case.
So that's people coming in McMahon still?
Yeah.
Because all this stuff with Oliver Luck, and then we got this other thing, and it's on Bloomberg Law, and they need you to pay for a subscription. So clearly, we're not going to do that. But they're talking about how McMahon is going to fund the XFL defense in ex-CEO's wrongful firing suit. So I thought that Oliver Luck was coming at McMahon. I thought the whole thing was that Oliver Luck let the whole case go, let the XFL get sold, all that, because he was coming at McMahon. So now, why is Vince McMahon funding the XFL defense? Why is the XFL still involved in this at all?
Because it counts as a loss at the end of the year. Okay. And we're coming up on December. So if McMahon funds a defense for a bankruptcy hearing, he can write that off on his taxes as a business expense.
Wow.
By the way, are you still kind of mad that you paid more in taxes than Trump ever did?
Oh, I pay a lot in taxes. Well, so it's just interesting. It's just interesting that that's still going on. I think we've said before that we think this is going to get settled out of court, but it is just interesting that McMahon is still, I would not be involved in this anymore, right? If you're saying that he might be doing this for tax reasons or whatever, I mean, I would just, it's like, walk away, Vince, right?
You lost. Like you took a big L. Just walk away. You're able to walk away now. Just do it. I understand taxes on billionaires are horrible. Yeah. Just walk away. That's what I would do.
What do you think about Tampa hosting 20% capacity for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I just saw that. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it plays out for him. See how it plays out for him. I just, we'll see what happens after this World Series. Cause I mean, they had fans in attendance in Texas. And Texas isn't like got their cases under control. I mean, El Paso's caseload is up 190%. I know El Paso and Dallas are on two opposite ends of the state. I get it. It's Texas. It is Texas. And unfortunately, this has become a little bit of a political issue. I don't know if you've been paying attention. And Texas is very Republican. So they're like, screw this it's your personal freedom. You're able to do what you want. I agree to that in some sense, but you have to also care about people. But let's see what happens about a week from now the World Series is over, to determine if this is okay to do.
Well, and the difference too is this isn't like you got like when they had 1,200 fans or something in the Seahawks Cardinals game last week in Arizona, right? I mean, that's a really low number, but this isn't like
normal for Arizona Cardinals games.
But this isn't that. I mean, but the Super Bowl, you're going to have people traveling in, presumably, right? So that's also the issue with that too. Is this isn't Kansas City's got 8,000 people in the stands or whatever. I mean, the Seahawks aren't having anybody, but this is presumably people traveling in, and or maybe you try to like negate that, but how do you negate that, right? Because it's the Super Bowl. So I think that is like the tricky situation.
I don't think it's necessarily the people traveling in you have to worry about. It's the people traveling out of a COVID hotspot.
Well, that's
true. Florida.
Yeah.
So take that COVID out of Florida and spread it all around the country. Great idea. I mean, it's going to be Kansas City and Tampa Bay anyway. So who knows? Maybe only people who really travel to and from Florida are Kansas City fans.
You think it's going to be Kansas City and the Buccaneers? That's your call for the Super Bowl?
That's my call.
Wow.
Seattle's defense is suspect, dude. They can't match Tampa. They can't, like Tom Brady and that offense that he has down there with Leonard Fournette. He can't match. Seahawks can't match Tampa. Seahawks will have to play against Tampa for the NFC Championship. I call that. But Tampa and Kansas City, that's going to be your Super Bowl. Oh. That's going to be your Super Bowl. And God willing, if that's correct, we're going to replay this clip.
I want to talk from the best teams of the league to the worst teams in the league. And there was an XFL. Aaron Castillo made a debut with the New York Jets. The 0-6 Jets. Terrible, worst team in the league, but they signed him and he made a field goal. So he put more points on the board than some of them do a lot of the time.
My gosh. At least something is at least they're scoring some points there. Because there was a long time where we're like, are the Guardians going to score more points at MetLife Stadium than the Giants or Jets are? Is that really going to happen?
I know. Yeah, the Jets are pretty poor, but he got signed on there. He was a Houston Roughnecker. He made 5 field goals. He was a key member of the XFL's only undefeated squad. This is from XFLboard.com. And he was with the CFL. And he got in there. And then our boy, Donald Parham, got another TD this weekend for the Chargers. So that was great, too. We had a couple of XFL guys. We're still waiting on, PJ Walker. And then obviously Jordan Tiamou got cut. But you had Parham and then Castillo making, is it Castillo? Am I saying that right? Or words are hard for me sometimes. But yeah, so you got some XFL guys making some action. So that's good.
Jets are 0-7, by the way.
0-7. That's pretty poor. We got that cleared off. Do you want to talk about, this is something out of left field, and this is something, this fan-controlled football league I want to talk about. So this is a true thing. So this is a totally true thing. And so one of my guys that works for me, so Matt Clements, he's not going to listen to this, but he works for me. He's one of my partners. He goes and shoots videos. He had messages to me weeks ago when he said, hey, you guys are doing this XFL thing. You need to check out this FCF. And I said, what the heck is the FCF? And the FCF is, for anyone that wants to know, it's the fan-controlled football league. And this has some big names behind it. You have Marshawn Lynch behind the team. You have Mike Tyson behind the team. You have Greg Miller. He's with, what'd you say?
You have Quavo?
Quavo. I don't know who that is because I don't really know sports. But you have Greg. You have Greg Miller with Kind of Funny Games, and Kind of Funny Games is like, these guys make like $50,000 a month on just doing or not more than that. I mean, these guys make so much freaking money on video game stuff. But if you watch this video, if you go to fcf.io, that's their website. And so they were originally going to launch last year. And then kind of all this went down and, COVID and everything. But apparently they're trying to launch in February. And the whole thing about this is and the reason why we're talking about this is Yahoo Sports just did the whole article this week about them partnering with Twitch. And it's going to be like 7-on-7. And it's going to be 1-hour games. And then all the people, you're going to be able to sit on Twitch on your phone, no one would be in the audience right now, but if you were in the stadium or if you were at home, and then it's going to be like Madden, and they're going to show the game, they show the plays, they're going to show A, B, C, D, and then you're all going to vote. And then that team's going to run, you know what I mean? So then they're going to run that thing. And so right now, if you go to FCF, .io, you can join to be a fan. You can get registered because you have to be registered to be able to vote and stuff. But then what was interesting is if you vote for plays that are successful, then your votes end up getting more points down the line. So you're voting for the wrong play every time. They're not going to count your vote. Get her back. You're a mark. You don't know. Reid doesn't know what he's. Because I'm go for it every time. Go for it. And they're like, no, we actually need the mark. Yeah, we actually need to kick a punt or whatever. What do you think about this? Marshawn Lynch, Skittles. Marshawn Lynch is involved.
I mean, interesting concept. I like the whole choose your own adventure. When they were a kid, used to have those books where if you wanted to do this, turn to page 24. If you want to do this, turn to page 55. I like that idea of it. It's going to be interesting to see maybe, because you're relying on technology and technology can fail. What if the votes don't come in? Then you're just well, what do we run? Do we run a Hail Mary here? Do we punt on second down? What do we run?
What I don't get is how the hell do you do a fan vote? It's got to, and it's an hour game, right? That's the whole thing. It's 7-on-7. It's an hour game. It looks, and I think it's kind of BS footage they shot last year. It's a styled. It wasn't a real game. They made it look like a game.
Prototype.
Thank you. But it's an hour game. How do you do fan voting? If a play clock's 40 seconds, that's not enough time to, in a normal football to huddle. You get a fan vote. The coach has got to get the results. They've got to relay it to the quarterback. They've got to do a thing. I mean, could you imagine not knowing, lining up and not knowing what play you were doing and then being oh, okay, we're going to do.
You're not going to go in the you're going to wait in the huddle until the play is called, of course, obviously. Yeah. And maybe it's a situation where a play is called in advance, where you call a play. And then it's the kickoff, right? And Quavo's team is receiving with Quavo and Richard Sherman's team is. I don't know what they're going to call them.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Oh yeah, Richard. I forgot Sherman's involved.
Yeah. So Quavo and Richard Sherman's team is you're picking that one.
I know. I got a story after this. Reid has a story.
So they're kicking off to Quavo's team. Quavo's receiving it. It's at that point during that kickoff, you're voting for the first play. And as they're running as they're taking this field for the first play, you're voting for the second down or if that's successful. You get what I'm saying? Like you're voting a play ahead, basically.
But what if you get stuffed? I mean, you can't. I mean, I guess. I mean, I'm sure coaches are always looking ahead, but I mean, you kind of want to know in the moment, right?
Well, I don't think this is going to be. I don't think anyone who does this is going to be a casual football fan. They're going to know, like, okay, it's first down. We should probably run. Okay, we're at the 5. We should probably run. There's probably going to be some people that are going to go for it. They're going to let's throw the ball off the 1 yard line, which is fundamentally not sound. It's not a sound decision at all. But I think that, you're going to get people that are going to do this, that are going to know the game of football. They're going to play Madden. They've played Madden. They understand that you run on first down. They understand that, if you're 3rd and 7, you're definitely going to pass. And people that line up on defense are going, okay, it's 3rd and 7. They're definitely going to pass here. It's going to be obvious. So it's basically a situation where do the people that are choosing the plays, are they able to communicate amongst themselves and say, we have to really run here because they're expecting a pass? Like you're leaving so many elements up to opinion.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I mean, Twitch is all in this. So I have my story really quick. So Richard Sherman's also one of the people on the team. I don't know if you know this story. When I was back at my former news job, and I famously did not like covering sports because I just didn't know anything and all the drama, and you're trying to wait all this time. They had me go film. Richard Sherman was he had just signed with the Seahawks, and he was doing a meet and greet at Dick's Drive-In on Queen Anne. And
How Seattle of him.
Huh?
How Seattle of him.
Yeah. And so I don't know. So Russell Wilson had just got hired. Right, or signed, and then Richard Sherman had just got signed. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know who any of these guys are. And so, I mean, this was like 8 years ago. And so I go to Dick's, whatever, and they go, so Aaron Levine goes, hey, Reid, he was the sports director. He goes, when you interview Richard Sherman, you have to get him to say, hey, this Richard Sherman, you're watching Cue It Up Sports. We need to get him to do like the intro, because we try to get all the different celebrities, hey, you're listening to the Markcast, I'm Sharman Jones, that kind of thing. So we tried that. We tried that on our own. Anyway, so I go and I'm like, okay, what's this guy's name? And so I go, hey, so you gotta say, can I get you to please say, hi, this is Russell Sherman. Is you listening to Cue It Up Sports? And he goes, my name's Richard Sherman. And he was so mad. And I go, I'm sorry. I just walked in the door. They had me go do this. I don't know who you are. Like, I'm sure you're very talented, but I don't know who you are. And
now you know who he is.
And he's going to be running the fan-controlled football league. So maybe
there were like 3 straight days where I was sent on Richard Sherman stories when I worked there.
Yeah.
Like, first day I was like, it was a Sports Illustrated cover story, and then it was like a Madden tournament where Bobby Wagner waxed everybody, and then there was something else. And the third day is like, bro, can they send someone else out to cover this stuff other than you? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Hey, bud. I don't make the decisions at all.
Okay, we got that one. I want to talk about, can we talk about this Yahoo Finance? And then did you see my question? Do you think we could play a minute of audio of a Yahoo Finance clip? Do you think we'll get fined on YouTube?
I don't think we'll get fined on YouTube, but let's give it a shot.
Okay, so this is really...
X in XFL right now stands for X. It brings to mind questions, too, about your own X here and what DJ's role might be in the league. A lot of people have been speculating about what his role might be versus your role. Some people saying he should be in the booth talking about the games. Are you looking to maybe use his brand to bring some of that cachet back to the XFL here? What's the strategy around that?
First, I've got to acknowledge the transition with the X. That was so masterfully done.
First off, we don't need to make fun of Danny for being the X anymore. But keep going.
People are so, and I also appreciate when the public gets really vocal how Dwayne should be used. So, Dwayne is an owner, a co-owner with us, and obviously Redbird and Jerry Cardinale. So that element is, in fact, for us, we are extremely hands-on. And the XFL is a day-to-day process for me in particular. And right now, because we're filming Red Notice, it's an in-between scene process for DJ. But we have his schedule blocked out for the season, for each season, so that we actually can be on the road and go to the games. So there's a real presence, not only from the corporate and storytelling, because even though everyone knows DJ is, in front of the camera, he's actually an incredible producer and content producer. So, he's also a former athlete. I'm a professional athlete. He's a former football player. He would be playing in the XFL if we went back so many years ago and that opportunity was there. So that interaction with the athletes, that representation, the interaction with the fans, making our games, our live games, an event, not just because you're watching the game, but what happens before, what happens in the booth. We actually plan on being extremely forward-facing. So
there you go. Yeah, that's right. So this is from Yahoo Finance. They were interviewing Danny about the XFL and basically the tagline of the article is what to expect from the XFL in its third attempt taking on the Football League. And that was obviously Danny talking to the reporter, Zach Guzman. First off, we do not need to make Danny is a wonderful person. She's not The Rock's ex-wife anymore. Like, I'm so done with that. And from the ex of the ex, The Rock to the ex of the XFL, she's like so over it. Ho, that's such a funny transition.
Dude, she handled that so gracefully, though.
Yeah.
And we're not just here like kissing up to Danny.
No.
Like, we're sick of. I'm personally, I think you are too. I always speak for both of us. Stop referring to her as The Rock's ex. Like, she is the brains.
Yeah.
The Rock would not be where he is if not for her. She's the brains. Not saying that Rock's dumb.
Yeah.
She is a very, very intelligent human being, and Danny should stand on her own merits. Let's stop doing this. Rock's ex-wife.
But what do you think about that? What do you think about her saying, first off, XFL is a day-to-day thing for her right now, and that they have the Rock schedule for like seasons to come set aside so that they can be on the road for the XFL?
I want the Rock in the booth. If the Rock is in the booth, you sent an article about TV rights for the XFL coming up in a post-pandemic era. If the Rock is in the booth, they're going to get a good TV deal because the Rock equals ratings no matter what. I mean, look what happened with Impact Wrestling. The Rock showed up on Impact Wrestling to induct Ken Shamrock in their Hall of Fame. The Rock on Impact Wrestling, that was probably the highest rated segment in the history of Impact Wrestling.
He was like via Zoom, right?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Rock equals ratings. So I want to see The Rock in the booth. If they're planning on doing this, put The Rock in the booth. By God.
Yeah, but I just thought this was really important to share because I know that we've batted around on here before. Okay, how involved is Rock going to be? I mean, this is from Danny's mouth. They have his schedule set aside. They're going to be on the road. He is going to be involved. I mean, that is just, if you are a fan of this league succeeding, that is all really, really, really good stuff to hear. This should get you very excited about this. I did want to touch on this Greg Parks article real quick, the TV's rights with the XFL. Interesting because he's kind of down on it. Greg's been down on the XFL the whole time, talking about how TV rights are down. Except, even like the NBA finals were down 49%, the college football is down. I mean, what do you make of all this in Greg's article? I know you're more positive about, XFL, hopefully.
I think Greg is being way too pessimistic about this. In all seriousness, people aren't able to go to the games right now. So where are they going to go watch the games? On TV. So why are we being pessimistic about XFL getting a bad TV deal? I don't see that being a problem at all.
Well, especially if we get The Rock. I mean, if he's in the booth, if he's doing the play-by-play, if he's on the road week to week. I mean, if you have The Rock doing the intros to the game, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that they're going to want to get people involved.
I think The Rock is going to be heavily involved in the broadcast. And if they're going, if what Danny said is true, and they're going to break out his schedule to where he's on the road with the XFL, I honestly believe that that's just they have to use him on an on-camera in an on-camera fashion. That was a hard one to say there. In an on-camera fashion, they have to use him as a color commentator. Maybe someone who goes up and talks to the players during the middle of the game. Who knows? But I think that Greg's being a little bit pessimistic about this because the only way you watch sports right now is on TV. Especially if you're concerned about catching the COVID, you're not going to go to a venue and watch sports right now. You're just not going to do it.
Final topic about the WWE Performance Breakout. WWE Performance Center, speaking of the bubble, speaking of COVID, speaking of all these different things, WWE has another COVID breakout in the Performance Center.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I guess, like there was like some kind of local in Florida or something where there was like a small amount of fans, and did they say who was the people that got sick with COVID?
I didn't see. It didn't sound like it was anybody like main roster, but it's the fact that they're kind of dealing with this. And I think they've been, what I've heard on like the wrestling podcast is they're kind of sweeping a lot of this under the rug. If anybody's getting it or if anybody's tested, we're like the MLB is saying, hey, I mean, and I know we talked about all that, but like the WWE like isn't even like publicizing if certain people have it. I mean, it's the same thing back when they had their wellness checks and it was the whole thing with steroids and our guys using steroids. They wouldn't report a lot of it. If you were a big star and if they maybe suspected you were doing steroids, they wouldn't report it. And it doesn't seem to me any difference now that the WWE wouldn't be talking about, well, if Roman Reigns, I mean, he's different because he's immunocompromised. But if a lot of those guys, they might just take him off TV for a couple of weeks and not talk about it.
And I wonder if that makes Roman Reigns who is immunocompromised consider go, wait a second. What are we doing?
I know.
I feel like the only way Roman would have come back in that scenario is if Vince assured him that there were precautions being taken. And I mean, this is the second outbreak. It says it's the second outbreak, but I think it's the third. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, this is the third outbreak.
Yeah, it just, like I said, putting it together in my head, they lie about a lot of the health stuff. It makes no difference to me. I don't know why this wouldn't be any different for them to lie or cover up some of the COVID stuff. So.
Interesting.
My last story, and I'll let you go. I know you got a busy day. Just a really quick, Chad Ochocinco. I took off everything up from the Google Doc. It's okay. Chad Ochocinco was asked this week, what was the most money you've ever spent taking someone out on a date? And you know what he said? $40.
That's Chad's thing, though, man. He lives like he's broke.
But then he also posted that he paid somebody $1,000 to drive him to McDonald's because he was hungry.
Okay, so I guess it's selective how broke he is. I think, dude, I don't know, man. I can tell you stories where I've gone on cheap dates, and it's been one of the best dates I've had. Maybe that's a situation where they just enjoyed each other's company. Maybe. You don't know.
Walk in the park. Hanging, holding hands with Chad because he's single, right? I mean, he's famously single.
I think he's single. One of my follows on Twitter. She found out that we interviewed him on the Markcast, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, do you have his contact info?" And I'm like, "No, it was set up." So
wow.
Can't help you out there.
Wow. People like Chad, man. He's an interesting,
likable dude. He's a likable dude. He's always been a likable dude. I've always liked Chad. I like the bombastic kind of braggadocio type of player, and Chad's that guy. And I think he's very entertaining. I think he's a very funny guy, and we'd love to have him on again. I definitely would. I
tried to do our check-in this week, and he's on like NFL podcast now. I'm like, okay, I mean, at least remember your roots, Chad. At least remember where you came from. I mean, he's off.
You were here first.
Yeah, we had Chad Ochocinco first. Just remember that.
All right. Well, that being said, I got to run. I've got a busy day. I've been very patient.
Yes, we appreciate it. We appreciate that you have a mattress being hauled up your stairs right now to move into your apartment. So God bless you. You're doing the Lord's work, Paul. Producing
I don't know if the Lord's work, Reid.
Producing the Markcast every week.
So again, go to xflshow.com / review
/review.
And also we didn't plug this, xflshow.com /merch, because now you have your hat situation all fixed, right?
Well, we don't, but I wasn't going to get into all that today. I thought you were running out of time.
I am running out of time, but we'll definitely get the hat back up soon. Reid's probably got a long story about that, and we'll share that next week probably.
And thank you to Jai Nokes again for coming on. We appreciate Jay spending time and talking some TSL and XFL with us today.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks.